What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 169 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about Martian Manhunter, Volume 2, The Red Rising. This is by Rob Williams, Eddie Barrows, Eber Ferreira, and Gabe Eltabe. And this collects issues 7 through 12 of the Martian Manhunter series, as well as Justice League of America issue 5. And this concludes the storyline where the Martian Manhunter has split himself up into several different aspects that all represent one part of him. And there are these other Martians who are trying to destroy all life on Earth so that they can restore Mars and make it a living, breathing planet once again. And I mentioned in my previous video, talking about the first volume of this series, that I didn't really appreciate this volume because it wasn't really what I expected. But I was thinking going into Volume 2 that even though this series isn't what I expected, that maybe I could still appreciate it for what it is, even though it isn't what I wanted it to be. Unfortunately, no. This volume, which concludes this whole story and concludes the series, just is not very good. The problem is, even within the premise of this series, I really don't understand what's going on. I have no idea what has actually happened by the end of this. There's so many twists and turns that this book throws at us in particular that I'm not really sure what's going on by the time I'm finished with this book. So at the end of Volume 1, one of the pieces of J'onn J'onzz basically partially completes this spell that is supposed to destroy all of Earth and then restore Mars. But he messes it up somehow. He doesn't fully do it, so part of Mars is still living. There's some life on Mars, and now it is going to collide with Earth somehow. I don't understand how life being on Earth and not being on Mars, how that would mean that these two planets have to collide. I don't really understand any of that. So now you've got people who were on Earth, they are now living on Mars. And apparently a good 20 years has passed for them. There's this one little girl, she's like 8 years old in Volume 1. She is somehow teleported to Mars, or she's transported to Mars off screen, and then she's aged like 20 years. By the end of this book, she's back to being the same age that she was at the beginning of this series. She's back to being 8 or 9 years old. So I have no idea if any of the events in this series actually happened, or if everything that did happen in this series was all undone, or if some of it happened and some of it didn't, because the girl is back to being a little girl. So does that mean that everyone who died in this series is no longer dead? Did everything get undone? I don't know. And that's kind of an important part of this book. If I don't know if any of this actually happened, then I'm not sure why I even bothered reading this book. Throughout this entire book, the Martian Manhunter is kind of a morally reprehensible character. He is very willing to sacrifice all of Earth to restore his previous home. And the book is trying to portray him as a very conflicted, morally gray character, like he had an unwinnable situation that he was thrust into, and he had to make a decision, am I going to save this planet or save that planet? Unfortunately, that's not the situation that he was in. He had a planet that was already completely dead, and he made a choice to bring that planet back to life and completely destroy another planet. And then he wasn't even able to do that, so both planets were kind of in danger at that point. And by the end of this book, once again, I'm not sure if I can like this version of J'onn J'onzz, because I don't know if he's actually responsible for the death of all of these people that he caused. And we find out in this book, a little bit of spoilers here, we find out that all of the evil Martians who have been trying to restore Mars throughout this entire series, we find out that all of them are actually aspects of J'onn J'onzz, and that he didn't just divide himself up into 5 pieces like we initially thought. He actually divided himself up into several pieces, and so all of the bad Martians in the series are actually pieces of J'onn J'onzz that he split off from himself a long time ago. I don't know why it took them this long to take action in trying to restore Mars. That's never explained. And if the events of this book actually did happen, and all of these people who were killed by the evil Martians and also killed by J'onn J'onzz being a morally reprehensible character, if all of those people actually did die, and only some of the events of this book were undone, then that means that Martian Manhunter is responsible for the death of numerous people in this book. And we don't have any accountability for that. By the end of this book, we don't have him saying, you know what, I'm responsible for all these people dying. We don't really have any conclusion to this. This just kind of ends with some of these versions of the Martian Manhunter dying, and I guess we're supposed to feel sad. Mr. Biscuits, he dies at one point, and I don't care. The book tries to make it like it's a sad, heroic sacrifice type thing, but he is a version of the Martian Manhunter. The Martian Manhunter still is alive at the end of this book, so I'm not sure why I'm supposed to feel sad that this particular version of the Martian Manhunter is dead. I don't know if once this version of the character dies, if his spirit or mind or whatever goes back into the original Martian Manhunter. I have no idea, because this book doesn't know what it wants to show us, and it doesn't know what's real and what's not real, and it doesn't know when it wants to throw another twisty retcon at us. This book is just a big, huge, hot, steaming pile of mess. At one point, Jean Constantine and a whole bunch of Constantine, whatever you want to call them, and a whole bunch of other magic users, they show up to try and throw a big magic shield around Earth, and that's ultimately pointless because the shield just breaks. So I don't really know why Rob Williams and everyone involved with this book thought that they needed to throw in the Justice League magic team to try and protect the Earth if it was just completely pointless and it wasn't going to work. I feel like you could have used that page space to kind of deal with some of your supporting characters here. Overall, if you are interested in reading about the Martian Manhunter, I would literally recommend any other comic book with the Martian Manhunter that is not this book. I do not recommend Volume 1 or Volume 2 of the New 52 Martian Manhunter series, unfortunately. It is something that I was very excited to read. I was in a big Martian Manhunter mood. I ordered both of these thinking that it would be pretty good, and it's just not. This is not something that I enjoyed. I can't see any people enjoying this. Even if you don't know anything about the Martian Manhunter before you read this series, this is still really confusing, and in my opinion, it's just not worth the money. So those are my thoughts on the Martian Manhunter Red Rising. Unfortunately, I do not recommend this book. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.